Let's get right into our headlines of the week. We're bringing in, as we do week in and week out, Will Richmond, the digital news editor at the Herald News. Will, how are you?
I'm good, Keith. How are you doing?
Good, thanks. Again, quite a bit going on in the city this week. Let's start off with a story that you guys posted online today, and it sort of follows along in some respects to the King Philip Mill here in Fall River. We've talked about that project a lot, how there were issues with safety in that building, and now the city is looking to find buyers for that property. But the article that you guys posted today is about the Duro Textiles facility in the far south end of Fall River. That facility also, Duro went out of business this past summer, laying off over 100 employees. And now the city is looking at that property proactively to make sure that it doesn't become a quote-unquote King Philip situation. Tell us about that.
Yeah, the city seems to have learned from the mistakes of the King Philip Mill situation. Those Duro properties were among some of the highest, and I think most of the cases, the highest in terms of tax scofflaws in the city.
Right.
So the city has moved forward with efforts to secure those buildings. From what we reported, there are issues with, there's still material in there. There's still fabrics in there. There are vendors who are going in and reclaiming some of their materials out of there. But there had been efforts from the company to have electricity shut off, water shut off, I believe, utilities, all that kind of thing. The city is acting to keep those things on. For one, the water is needed in case of any fire suppression issues. The gas is still needed to run in there in the winter so that the pipes do not freeze, which helps with the water suppression issues as well, or the fire suppression issues. So there seems to be a proactive effort to keep the buildings in a safe state, especially important considering in many cases those buildings abut residential neighborhoods. So moving quickly. They just closed in July. The city certainly seems to be moving quickly to make sure all those properties are secure and do not become a public nuisance, which the King Philip Mill had become in many cases.
Now, Will, what's the process of the ownership of that building? Does Duro still control it? Any word on whoever owns the building, the prospects of turning it over and moving forward?
Well, it looks like the city is moving forward with potential claims, but also hoping to line up buyers for it. I think that the sense is the city is hoping to not have to take it into receivership, that maybe something can be worked out in between here. But certainly with the company owing the city thousands of dollars on each of the buildings individually, totaling up to hundreds of thousands in all. There's a hope to have this secured, and hopefully ownership takes over so that the city is not essentially becoming the owner of these properties.
Right. And that's something, we've talked about this before. There's so many mill space in the city that potentially could be an issue, and it's good to see that the city is taking a proactive approach here. And as you said, they appear to be learning from what had been taking place with King Philip Mill. All right, moving forward, the other story actually broke over the weekend. A lot of it online through social media has to do with the Oak Grove Cemetery and the Fall River Park Board. Park Board had been criticized in the past for having cemetery personnel remove personal artifacts from the graves at Oak Grove Cemetery. And recently they've removed a lot more what I guess some people may consider more permanent type structures, these decorative urns and flower pots from the area, and just placing them in piles in the cemetery. And online at the Herald News, there are photos of just these piles of material. And the Park Board and cemetery are hearing from residents about that. Fill us in on maybe what the latest is.
Yeah, it certainly seems that they decided to take the cleaning of the cemetery to another step. The removal of these items which don't fit into the cemetery regulations. It certainly seems to be some confusion over whether or not people were notified of this, whether it was considered that the initial notification back with the first round of removals included these items. So there, obviously people who have loved ones buried in Oak Grove Cemetery are very upset about this. I think their impression was those items were removed previously. We're moving on. There's an understanding of what the regulations are, but that didn't seem to be the case on, last week going into the weekend.
Mm.
And yeah, I mean, there were piles of, like you said, decorative urns, looked like some benches, concrete type benches in some cases. A lot of things that just people probably thought were going to remain there and now have been gone and removed completely. So, but the city is back in this actions. The mayor had said that this is what was intended. So, we'll see what happens next with it.
Yeah, it may not be much recourse if that's part of the regulations of the park board and of that cemetery, but maybe some communication, issues here would have been better performed in this matter. But anyway, I know you'll be following that going forward. The last item I want to bring up in terms of the news this week is sort of budgetary for the city of Fall River. This week, the city found out that the State Department of Revenue has certified the so-called free cash situation for the city for fiscal year 2016. And tell us a little bit first, Will, for people who don't understand, what is free cash and what does that mean?
Well, free cash is essentially unspent money from the previous fiscal year.
Right.
So that can be carried forward into the future fiscal year. So basically the state certified $5.2 million of free cash out of the general fund. So that money now can be shifted forward. It appears the main goal is to put this into the stabilization fund. I believe offhand it was about $4 million that Mayor Correa identified as moving into that amount, into stabilization. So that's where the main amount of it will go. For those who feel the money could be expended elsewhere, it should be kept in mind that the state does recommend that cities and municipalities have healthy stabilization funds in the event of an emergency situation. So, that money doesn't just burn a hole in the city's pocket, so to say.
Right, and the city had spent quite a bit of that money in the past few fiscal years, bringing it down to what, about $500,000 that was in that account, that's in that account now? Yeah.
Yeah, it had been shrunk down quite a bit. People may recall that promises of free cash spending to balance the education side of the budget, especially, have been made in previous years, which made it hard to really build up the stabilization fund. So, with all of those promises out of the way, it looks like the city can start rebuilding the stabilization fund while also having some money left over to push forward into other items. And that's something that will be up for discussion between the administration and the city council going forward.
All right, Will, finally, before we talk about what's happening with the Herald News over the weekend, I understand today, as we're taping this on Thursday, you're going to be putting on your bow tie and your top hat. I believe you and the staff there at the Herald News are going to be attending a ceremony today to pick up some hardware, some awards that the Herald News has received. Tell us about what those awards are.
Yeah, the New England News and Press Association has awarded the Herald News with their Public Occurrences Award. This is given to one paper in, I believe, in various size categories. That they generally group us in the medium-sized newspapers and news organizations in the New England area. But they've honored us for our Future of Fall River series that we did last summer, looking at where Fall River stands and what needs to change to move the city forward. So that series, ran last August into early September and focused on things such as where does Fall River's tax rate compare to other municipalities in the Commonwealth? What does nightlife look like for millennials? And some topics such as that. So, yeah, we're very honored. We'll be heading up to their award ceremony this afternoon as part of NEMPA's annual fall conference. So, we're very honored to receive this.
Well, very good, well deserved. And those of you who follow FRC Media may have heard that FRC Media also, we won an award, a regional award from the Northeast region of the Alliance for Community Media. overall excellent, which is technically in our budget category, again, our size, basically a Station of the Year award. So we're pleased about that, and we'll be receiving that award later on this month as well. So good opportunity for us to pat ourselves on the back, right, Will?
Yeah, if we don't, who will, Keith?
That's right. All right, Will, what's coming up in the next few days?
Well, first off, congratulations to FRC Media as well. So
Thank you.
But yeah, we'll be this weekend, continuing the push towards elections. So we'll have some look at more of the election issues coming forward, including a feature on the animal welfare and treatment question that's coming out. And, we'll be out there for all the fall events, fall festivals that come with Columbus Day weekend as well. So hopefully it'll be a nice weekend. It looks like Hurricane Matthew will stay away from us.
Thank goodness.
And, we can all enjoy ourselves on a long weekend.
All right, well, thanks for joining us. We'll talk again next week.